Live. Very first question. Did somebody already left? Hey, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Let's get right to it. Is about Jonah. A lot of people online have been talking about me. They've been saying I don't know anything about Jonah. No, I'm just kidding. Nobody's talking about me, and nobody's saying anything about Jonah. But I'm glad you asked. The question is from Matthew Bush. Does Swedenborg ever discuss the inner meaning of the Book of Jonah? Yeah. He doesn't cover it in Secrets of Heaven or any of his explanations of the Book of Revelation. Those works are the only time when he goes line by line through stories and gives you the whole meaning. So he doesn't give you every little bit of Jonah. What you have to do is find it piecemeal in his other works. Often when he's listing a particular point and saying, look at all the places that this shows up in the Word. You have it in David and in Daniel and in Jonah and in Matthew. I did look up a few of those because the question was in early. And the Book of Jonah is going to have a very complicated meaning because every bit of the Bible has its own set of meanings, usually at least a 3-part set of meanings. So we can't just say, oh, Jonah's about this. But the things that I found through quick and furious research was that Jonah's 3 days being in the belly of the fish is about the extremity or the full experience of desolation and despair that we undergo in our times of spiritual crisis. 3 being the completion of it, that we have to get to a certain point. Being in the belly, he said, is a correspondence of a place that we experience from time to time that he calls the underground world or the underground realm. It's also referenced as the pit in the Bible. And as I understand it, it's a place that's not in hell, but it dips down so that hell is all around it. So when your spirit is in that state, you get afflicted by the aura and the energy that's in hell. And this is what creates these crises in us. I also talked about Nineveh, the city of Nineveh. Remember, Jonah went there to try to tell them all to get with the program. Don't be bad, be good. Swedenborg says that Nineveh is a symbol or a correspondence of falsity that comes from ignorance. So people who are living in falsity because they don't know any better. That's why, even though Jonah at one point wants Nineveh to be cursed, they're forgiven because they don't know any better. He talks about the great whale in one place as being people who have broad outlines of what things should be, and so grab onto specific ideas and misuse them. John Bishop says, is it true that any prayer or thought that gains the right momentum becomes reality? Wouldn't a collective prayer of all of us here today help cause a swift end to the war in Ukraine? Try it. I don't know if any prayer that can gain the right momentum becomes reality. Swedenborg doesn't talk about that in particular. He talks about really the player in the game is divine providence. That said, divine providence is influenced by us and what we do, because divine providence is constantly having to navigate around our bad choices. So I would imagine that you could, obviously, if enough people had it in their hearts that they were going to stop the war before it happened, God, that wouldn't have had to be permitted. So I just don't know if our prayers could affect it or not. But I do think anytime you're setting an intention and acting on that in whatever way, it's not the only thing you'd want to do if you want to help people, but I do think there could be something to it. Okay, cool. And then there was a follow-up that John Bishop had about manifestation. It seems that there's nothing more spiritual than the creation and things around us. What does Swedenborg say about creating a truer reality out of your own thoughts and actions when focused on wealth? So that would be, I would assume, the prosperity gospel, law of attraction kind of thing, where it's like you can envision a certain way of being that usually you're advancing monetarily and can try to make that happen. Maintenance is perpetual creation. So Swedenborg doesn't draw a huge distinction between the instance in which God created everything and then every moment that's followed, because every moment everything is being created. God is constantly creating everything. Maintenance is perpetual creation. In the spiritual world, your thoughts and feelings create your surroundings. The houses that angels live in, the houses that evil spirits live in, the way the landscape looks around heaven, around hell, the way the elements of people's gardens look are a reflection of them. I don't think it's a decision people make. For example, an angel would say, I really would love to have a big skylight in my living room, so let me will that into existence. It's an honest reflection of who you are and what the Lord is giving you. So it'd be more like your dreams are kind of revealing stuff about you. I don't think it's because angels don't want to lead themselves. They want the Lord to lead them. So they want the Lord to orchestrate that stuff. I don't know to what extent all of that plays out in the physical world. It seems like thoughts and feelings don't have the same kind of effect on the physical world. It seems like there's other circumstances that have those effects, that providence works through different means. But if you're talking about being focused on wealth, Swedenborg talks about when we pray, we got to ask for spiritual things. Anything can be spiritual whether or not something's spiritual, it depends on what your intent is in using it. So if you're looking for wealth for the sake of honor, reputation, and gain, that's natural. It's not spiritual. It doesn't mean people don't get it, but it will definitely feel good in the moment, but it can be a blessing or a curse depending on what it does to you afterwards, because some people it leads astray. So I would think spiritual wealth that has a spiritual component to it would be, I really need, I'm working on this thing. I really want to do this good, but I need resources to do it. Can we do this? I don't think there's no, you'd have to then be content with. Swedenborg even had this maxim that he had for himself, which is be content with the dispensations of providence. So I think you can strive for it. He was trying very hard to do things, trying very hard to get his books out, but in the end had to say, okay, thy will be done. So I think if you're trying to, I need some wealth, I think you'd have to be trying to do something good with it. But I don't know if the spiritual, because spiritual wealth is goodness and truth. To be spiritually rich is to have an abundance of truths that you understand and apply in your life. And to be spiritually rich in an emotional sense is to have good motivations for things and to enjoy things that are good. That is spiritual wealth. And that's the kind of stuff I think that can more directly respond to prayer. I don't know. I guess I could just say that about everything. But that's as much as I do know about it. Okay. Daryl, you said personally asked 3. Hope they are not too strange. What did you write them here, Daryl? I don't see it. Or did you email me or something like that? Luciano, hey, what's going on? Good to see you, Luciano, the other day. Luciano and Veronica, very nice to see you. That was great hanging out. I was in Florida over the weekend for an Off the Left Eye event, and I got to meet a number of you, and it was quite a wonderful experience. All right, come on. Everyone's saying no chit-chat. Just do your questions. Dave Schultz says, I'm dying of alcoholism. What does Swedenborg say? I'm sorry, Dave. Thanks for being willing to share what you're going through. It sounds like a lot of suffering. I'm sorry to hear. I don't know the details of how close you are, but I'm sorry about that. Well, Swedenborg says that nobody really dies, that there is the transition between this life and the next life is just that. It's a transition. and that our real selves are the spirit in us that can never die, that this world is just a place in which we try to build a good foundation to live on in the next life. Says that when we cross over, we are taken care of by angels who have an almost infinite amount of the Lord's love and wisdom for us. We're very closely under the Lord's care there. And they seek to put a good interpretation on everything we've done, and they want nothing more than to help us and to lead us into heaven. And heaven is simply the sharing of love, and feeling the joy of other people is joy in ourselves. If you have any other, if you want me to go at a different angle on that, just type another thing in, Dave, and I'll talk about it more. But that's what Swedenborg says about dying. Yeah. Stephen says, if we should put others first, how to stay motivated to care for ourselves without being/feeling selfish? How and where to draw the line? Yeah, this is often a challenge that people have when they're trying to be spiritual, and you hear that to be spiritual, as I was just saying, is about the love of other people and the sharing of love. So do you just let yourself go? And commonly people will be wondering, do you let people walk on you? So let me get a little more sophisticated in my definition of what it is to care for other people. Charity, which is, I guess, the old translation. Now in the New Century Edition, it's translated caring, which is the basic unit of, you could also call it love of the neighbor. What we are supposed to be going off of is, Swedenborg says, not even particularly about thinking about other people and focusing on them. It is fundamentally doing what is right, honest, and fair in every situation. That is love of the common good, which is what charity is. That actually the main expression of charity that people have, according to Swedenborg, is to justly, honestly, and fairly do whatever their occupation or function in the world is. So, because by doing that, you are, for example, if you're a nurse or a doctor, you going in and, in the spirit of what's fair, honest, and right, going and performing your duties, you are making society better. And if that's what's motivating you, I want to make a difference, a positive difference, that's what the core of it is. For example, if you're a judge, Swedenborg talks about this a lot, he talks about corrupt judges versus judges who have caring in their heart. So if you have your office as a judge and you are doing favors for people who do favors for you, you're using that to get relatives and family members into high positions, you're abusing your authority, then you don't have charity. But if you're going to the courtroom and every time trying to do what you really believe is right based on everything you've learned, even if you have to sentence somebody who this is a just penalty and that ultimately looks towards their reformation and protection of the people that could be harmed by them, that's charity. So caring for yourself is super important in that. I take it very seriously, the idea that, for example, here I am showing up at Wednesday, and all of you are here and taking time out of your days to hear me. I've basically truncated the time here that it would take all of you to search through Swedenborg for all this time and mull it over for years and years and figure out how it works and all that. And I'm doing that process so you can all show up and say, what does Swedenborg say about this? And I can go back and get that. I need to be able to do that effectively, and I need to be able to present things in a clear way. I need to have enough energy to do it. I need to be able to focus and not be tired. There's a lot I need to do that if I don't do that for myself, all of you who show up here are going to get less value. Because hopefully what we're doing here is giving you some kind of lift or a boost or a reminder or a comfort or an insight that is going to make your life better. I get them all the time when I'm hearing the questions that all of you are asking. So for me to be able to do that well, I've got to take care of myself. So I feel like that is, if I just at my house there was some friend I had who was trying to borrow all my stuff and take all my time and drained me, and then I showed up here less ready to try to help people, that wouldn't really be charity. And it would be really setting that other person up to not have a my hypothetical friend, you know who you are, just kidding, to not have a clear sense of boundaries and how to live with people. So I hope that's making sense, because I really feel clearly that taking care of yourself is great. Do it a ton. It's just why are you taking care of yourself? And that includes, like, when I was just at Florida for this event, there was some time in there when I just went and snorkeled off the beach, and when I was looking out at the waves and things, I was just thinking, this is good for Curtis. This is recharging Curtis. This is invigorating Curtis. This is lifting his spirits, because you have to do that. You have to think holistically and take care of yourself, so that if I was just doing that, like I was trying to wring everything I could out of this whole thing for myself, if I was just coming and everything all of you were saying, I was just trying to get praise from everybody, if I was just trying to get, if we went to that event and I blew off preparing for it and just wanted to go out and get drunk, then that would be the reverse of caring for yourself for good reason. But if you're taking care of yourself because you know you'll be more helpful to people, that's good. That's really good. That's what I think anyway. Good day, Steve. Angela B says, hi Curtis, question. How can people with trauma feel God and the angels more closely if they've kind of been calcified? Yeah, so trauma is a complex and difficult thing. I've had my own traumas, and I've tried to work through them with therapists, and I think it does seem like it's not just enough to have, that destroys some of the order in which we try to connect to God and angels. So it seems like there does have to be a holistic look at it. So I'm not sure that the human race even really knows really well how to deal with trauma and heal people from it. But it seems like you'd have to, sometimes there's physical stuff that needs to happen. Sometimes there's talking, I find talk therapy to be really good. I think it seems like I'm making progress on it. You can feel like, I was kind of holding that in, and now I've said something that was deep down there. I didn't realize it was down there. But I don't know if long-term that fix it. I don't know if I'm going to have a very helpful answer to it, but I'd say don't feel bad about it. Yes, maybe we do. Maybe we can't connect with them more closely. And I'm sure God is, stringently trying to work on some kind of remedy. I mean, he wants everybody to be able to feel close to him. But be gentle with yourself, and I'm sure heaven can find a way that's non-invasive and not going to hurt you to connect. Maybe it's in something you love. Maybe it's something that makes you feel comfortable, that God and the angels are pouring their energy into, if for the direct kind of feelings are, for some reason, need to be, as you said, calcified. So Dave Schultz, who said before, you're dying of alcoholism. I didn't know if, are you looking for help as a... Oh, okay, I see down there. I love this show, but I can't stop drinking. He says, sorry to bother you all. You're not bothering us. This is what life is about, Dave. This is what life is about. We're trying to help each other. The worst thing is, if you got something where you can't stop drinking and you feel like you're killing yourself, and we're here for you. That's what life should be about, is that we should be able to try to help each other when we're in the belly of the whale, like we're just talking about. as far as how to do it, yeah. I mean, that's obviously it's such a complicated thing. Everybody says this, but the people have said the 12 steps are really powerful. By the way, a lot of people think the 12 steps were based on Swedenborg because Bill Wilson's wife was a Swedenborgian, and Swedenborg in the spiritual world sees a temple with 12 steps on it. That's the symbol of the path of regeneration. There's a lot of similarities there. So, okay. So, no, Melissa's not in the chat, Matthew Bush. That's just me every once in a while saying something on there. The Wednesday is like, no frills on the Wednesday. Okay. Okay, Luciano says, how do you keep your heart in check and make sure you're doing good for the sake of good and not for eternal rewards? It's impossible to know. You can never be totally sure of whether you're doing good for the sake of yourself or for the sake of, genuinely for the sake of others. We don't know. He says that. Swedenborg says that. We don't know. That's why really our part is not as much to be sure that there's a purity of good in what we do. I mean, we can try, we can approximate and say, all right, what are some ways that I feel like I could be trying to keep my sense of self out of it. Eternal rewards, I don't think that, yeah, right. Or my sense of particularly love of self-based eternal rewards. So Swedenborg talks about people trying to become the greatest in heaven or become happier than others in heaven, and that will trip you up. But in general, to say, well, I want to do this because I'll go to heaven, it's a fine workaround. It's not perfect, but like I was saying, we can't really know for sure. Like when I'm doing this show, I think I like to do it because I like the truths of Swedenborg, and I want to talk about them with people, and I want to give good advice. But how do I? It could just be I like being the center of attention. I like to hear the sound of my own voice. I'm never going to know for sure. But that's why really our work in repentance and regeneration is not really about purifying the good. It's about shunning the bad. He says whenever he discusses how do you know if you're doing things for a good reason or not, he always comes back to if you are not doing the opposite, then you have the good in you. So if you're not breaking the 10 commandments, like that's if you're not doing everything that's related to killing people, which is Swedenborg says hatred, trying to ruin their reputation, everything that has some kind of disdain for the welfare of others in it. If you're shunning doing those things and really even trying to work on not wanting to do them and then eventually not even entertaining thoughts about them as we move, that is, then he says, then you're in the good. That's the opposite of that. So our work is really in when an opportunity comes up to experience the pleasure of doing something destructive to other people, that we try to, and not perfectly, but as much as we can, resist that. That's our side of the field, and then God is going to give us the joy and the motivation to do things rightly. So I hope that's helpful. Stephen says, did Swedenborg ever mention anything about evolution or dinosaurs? No, and no evolution, dinosaurs. I don't think so. The reason that it's not that big of a deal with Swedenborg is because he doesn't believe the creation story is an actual literal account of the creation of the world. He says it, like everything in the Bible, is about the human spiritual journey. So that's about the totality of regeneration. We did a couple of shows on that. So there's not the flashpoint there that there is between creationism and science, because Swedenborg never makes the claim that that's how the world started anyway. Stephen, then after that, said, should we forgive people if they haven't asked for our forgiveness? Yeah, I think so, because doesn't Jesus say forgive 70 times, 7 times? Revenge. I was just saying, 10 Commandments, holding on to hatred towards someone is not going to do you any favors. It's not going to do them any favors. Swedenborg talks about you can be exercising charity. You can still, if somebody is attacking you, you can stop them. You can even prosecute them, whatever needs to happen to make you safe and others safe and make sure they can't keep doing that thing. Ultimately, you'd want to, he says, you can be doing that in a state of charity if you maintain an intention to become the attacker's friend once they come to their senses. Now, there are more complex cases where, let's say, if you were abused by somebody, you might never feel like you want to have contact with that person. That's fine. I don't think we have to do forgiving in that kind of way. I think it's perfectly okay to not want a connection with someone. But what we want to try to work on is not wishing ill to people. Meaning, even if you feel like, oh, this person should go to jail, that's fine, but you ultimately aren't hoping they go to hell. You're hoping that God can find a way to show them the error of their ways. So forgiveness is the right... Yeah, but forgiveness is an internal thing. It doesn't mean that you have to then go get involved with them. And there's a lot of things that could mean to people. So I don't want to say, yes, forgive. Forgive doesn't mean going up and shaking the hand. It would be an internal thing of, I understand that hell made you do what you did, and I hope you get out of it. And yeah, I know the Lord loves you regardless. So, okay. To only have enough money for yourself and be content seems to me a path of resistance, preventing God giving your money and resources to people who really need help. What do you think? Yeah, so this is in reference to the earlier answer I was given about, basically asking God for money. Swedenborg says, be content with the dispensations of providence. Right. The point is not to not care about being influential. The devil is a love of ruling from the love of self. So that is the opposite of God, and we all have that from the beginning. We all, in some way or other, want to be superior to other people. We want to control other people, either primarily or secondarily, if our primary aim is just material comforts and pleasure. That gets turned into nothing but into a love for ruling for the sake of service, or the love of influence for the sake of service. So yes, you can be more useful with more resources. Swedenborg was only able to do all what he did because he had enough money that he could stop doing anything that made money and just write these books. And he had his own money, so he could publish them using his own money and do so at a loss. So if he hadn't had the money, none of us would have gotten access to it. I think the contentment doesn't mean don't try. I think it means don't keep trying, but don't refuse to be happy without the results you want, or don't rage at God if it doesn't come true. Because Swedenborg was trying with all of his might to get more people to buy his books and read his books and review them, and anything to get it in people's hands. And it didn't happen nearly as much as he wanted. And he kept trying, kept devising new strategies and changing what he published when and everything. But at the same time, I'm fairly certain from letters and things he wrote that he wasn't adamantly upset with God, or he wasn't aggrieved and discontented. He was trying hard, but at the same time trusting that the Lord would do what was right. So it's probably a balancing act that's a little bit complex, but it's a good point. Yeah, I'm not trying to say just be spiritual, don't have ambition for anything, but just knowing that some people can work really hard and not see a lot of monetary return. And some people seem to be, experiencing all these setbacks. You don't know ultimately what God's trying to do. So I guess hold out hope that even if you're not seeing the big picture, this is what's just occurring to me now is in divine providence. He says people who don't have care for the morrow, while they care about what's coming up, they don't at the same time. They're not anxious about it. If they're raised to riches and honors, they don't consider themselves better than other people. This is paraphrasing right now. And if they are cast into lowly positions, they're not dejected, is how he says it. Because they know that God will lead everything to good in the end. So I think that it doesn't mean if you wouldn't be trying to get out of that situation, but you wouldn't take it to heart. Like, oh, this means I'm less than other people, or this means I'm better than other people, because you know God's got a plan. Okay, that's all I got on that. The Cube says, do things have to rot and decay back into the earth for perennial renewal, and for new plants and animals and new people? What does that mean spiritually? I always think that, well, it has something to do with hell. Swedenborg always talks about people who are choosing hell. They go through all these negative experiences, and it gets them to the place where they can then, they've been freed of these cravings for evil so that they can do some kind of useful work. So it could be like getting recycled into being able to do something good. Sean Marcel Williams said, hopefully not an ignorant question, but did Swedenborg mention the process of evolution as far as from a scientific perspective? That's not ignorant. Someone actually asked it earlier in the show. He does not. As I said before, the reason why he doesn't ever really talk about how life came to be in that sense, because he doesn't believe that the creation story in the Bible is actually a literal account of the creation of the earth. It's a metaphorical, correspondential account of the creation of the new will and the new understanding in people. So it wasn't something he needed to tackle or solve. But no questions are ignorant questions. Dada Dene says, did Swedenborg ever speak about gender, such as spiritual reasons behind all this confusion? No, I don't. I mean, he talks about gender, but not as far as when you're talking about all this confusion. I think you're probably referencing everything surrounding gender identity. That's a huge topic of debate in, it feels like all over the world, but maybe particularly in Western countries. I actually don't know. Spiritual reasons for why people have all kinds of different experiences and I feel like I'd love a little more insight on what's going on there. But okay, so hey, Nelly and Enrico from Stockholm. Hey, go check out somewhere in Sweden, in one of the main institutions there. They got all of Swedenborg's original editions and things, so go check it out sometime. Okay, sorry, I just got one of these skips. I'm gonna see if I missed your question here. Please don't take it personally. I'm like, as I'm talking, this chat's going down and then the thing skips around, so just enter it in the comments afterwards, and we'll get to it. Eric C.A. Home says, in my life, a little blue light in the corner of my eye lights up to guide me. Didn't E.S. have a light of guidance from the book The Presence of Other Worlds? I think he did. He doesn't talk about it a ton. I do remember reading that in Presence of Other Worlds and a few other places where he does talk about a sort of signal that would alert him if what he was writing was true or not. That's fascinating that you have something similar. Hey, Rob from Wales, UK. Okay. Stephen says, how do you view the New Age ideas? Is it true they have love but lack the truth, therefore will never be complete in terms of saving people's souls, or could be viewed as dangerous? Very few teachings, most teachings that generally lead toward love of God and love of the neighbor are not dangerous. I think because the way that you go to heaven is through conscience. And conscience is formed out of, I was just reading about this in Swedenborg's book, New Jerusalem. Conscience is formed out of the truths, the ideas in your religious system, whatever that is, that you take to heart and live by. Those have to really count as being religious ideas. They can't go drastically against love of the neighbor. And he says they have to acknowledge some kind of supreme being that's more than you are. But that is enough to lead you to heaven. God can lead anyone through heaven through whatever religious tradition they're in. So I think the New Age ideas, many of which I think are similar to what Swedenborg says or the same thing, can be great. It can be great. And I guess everyone has different thoughts on what is the New Age. I see it as this big giant thing that encompasses all kinds of stuff, from new thoughts to Indian traditions that, like yoga, that have been brought into the West. I think there's plenty of people could have saved souls from that, as long as it's teaching something that's ultimately about loving God and loving the neighbor. That's what religion is. Okay. Thanks, John Childs. Okay, so, oh man. Stephen, all right. I got another one from Stephen. Curtis, if you could sum up the most important concepts, I call them truths, Swedenborg has taught you, what would it be? Most important truths are the difference between heaven and hell. So that heaven is the joy you get out of doing things that are in alignment with the divine design, and hell is the joy you get out of things that are opposite to the divine design. So both of them have joy to them. Hell is enjoying doing things that are ultimately harmful. Heaven is enjoying doing things that are ultimately constructive. That's really important. The other important truth is that heaven and hell influence your thoughts and feelings. This is crucial to me in explaining where negative thoughts and feelings are coming from, and is equipped me to not be manipulated by them. Then divine providence, that the Lord is going to bring good out of every little detail of your life. And that the fourth one I'll give is that spiritual crises, that a necessary part of our spiritual growth is that we go through these dark nights of the soul where you get brought to despair and then built back up again. It's not something that's gone drastically wrong. It's just how you grow. Dennis Lewis, on the subject of Genesis, why did God make reptiles dominant before mammals if we are in God's image? Because dinosaurs are so cool. So the human image is in everything. We don't even originate the image. The human image is God, and everything in the universe has some reflection of God in it. And you can see this if you go look at the way that animals' skeletons are and the way that their cells are. There's a lot of similarities to us. So you look at the whole history of life on this planet as the movement of the human form as it continues to approach more and more to God. So the reptiles, particularly, when paleontology seems to think that there was reptiles in all the major ecological niches that now animals fill, that was part of the order in the process. That there was something about that would set the world up to be where it is today, or is displaying the qualities of God or the processes. I think that it's just God's order. Eric says, why are the archangels all male, or is that not true? Not true. Swedenborg says that the archangels mentioned in the Bible are not individual angels. There's not a guy named Michael who is one of God's right-hand men. Angels, those angels in the Bible, represent kinds of angels, or which angels being people who have regenerated kinds of people. So, and actually kinds of activities that people engage in. So Michael is about defending with truth. So anybody who is, so in assemblage in heaven, there are angels who generally fit into being Michael, and they are the ones who defend with truth. And that is, I would assume, something that each of us can participate in as well. So they're not single people. They're represented as male in the Bible for some correspondence. Whenever something is male or female in the Bible, it has to, because it's either talking about your will or your understanding. Sometimes the understanding is male and the will is female, but sometimes it's the reverse. The will is male and the understanding is female. It depends on whether it's man and wife, male and female, husband and wife. It switches all the time, but it's always talking about those didactic elements in us. And angels are all both. Swedenborg says that a pair of male and female people together that are bonded by conjugal love is really what an angel is. He calls individual people angels, yes, but he at other times says pairs an actual angel. William Boyd, I've met people who have very difficult times for decades. Why do people suffer more than most others? I don't know. Because any reason that I give to that is going to sound trite or dismissive. Some good's going to come out of it. It could be that it'll make them into a particularly powerful force for good. It could be it was saving them from some particularly dire evil. It could be that it's just a burden, the brunt of things that some of us bear because evil's in the world and some people get hit harder by it than others. I do know that God is through everything in life leading us to a happy state that lasts forever. And that the happiness we experience in heaven is so much longer and greater than anything on earth, although it's miserable to go through at the time, ends up being a little blip. And that God, I think the wipe away every tear thing is true. So I don't know for sure, but in the end we'll understand it and I think be okay with it. Alberto says, as Swedenborg talked about the different technologies that aren't found on our planet, perhaps UFO crafts, he talks about aliens, a lot of aliens, but never technology there. So the aliens he seems to talk about are not super technologically minded, that they're more simple than people on this earth. Okay. Sean Marcel Williams says, would love to attend one of the Off the Left Eye conferences in person, hopefully soon. Okay, people, you know that in June we are doing our first ever big in-person gathering, the Off the Left Eye experience, where any of you can come and hang out with us here where our studio is and our offices in Bryn Athyn, Pennsylvania, and spend 3 days talking about how the spiritual world is all around us. You can register online as well. I'm going to give everybody a link. But we'd love to see you. So you can stream it to your computer, or you can really come out and hang out with us. If you go to offtheleft.com, you'll see right there, first thing, the Off the Left Eye Experience 2022. Get in there and register. If you can't afford it, we have like a fund for financial aid. Apply for that. We'd love to see you there. I want to hang out with everybody. So that's a big one. That's one that you can fly out here. We'll have accommodations. We'll have meals for you, everything like that. YT Cygnus says humans in the womb get the form of every stage of life on Earth too. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Mary Sunshine says, why are angels of death portrayed as dark with a black cloak, sphere, and faceless? I don't know. Let's see, those elements. Faceless. Well, if let's say that the way that angels of death are portrayed in popular culture, which is I'm assuming what you're referencing, is a reflection of, it's to some extent of the reality of some kind of evil spirits that's people have experiences of, or that seep into the mind somehow, and we get these ideas. So black cloak, faceless. So the face corresponds to, it is an image. Swedenborg says an image of the mind. So any distortion on the human form is some kind of distortion of the human mind. So if you're faceless, it's like you don't have that humanity. Black cloak would have to be definitely the robes people wear have correspondences, so that could be something about the love of self. I don't know. I have to see a picture of one, and then look up some stuff about it. Cool. Gaston says, "Oh, also, do you always know when you're regenerating, even not knowing about the process?" I don't think so. I don't think you always know that you're regenerating. This is God's aim and providence every second, is to have every circumstance in life regenerate us. Regenerating being the process of going from being selfish and materialistic to being loving and full of truth. Swedenborg talks about people being very surprised when they get to the other life. People who had thought they were going to be the best in heaven. Turns out they had a lot of negativity, didn't regenerate as much as they thought. And people who think, oh, I'm no good, I'm nobody. Actually, God was able to do a lot. We don't know. We can't truly know our own spiritual state. And that's why it's especially important that we never presume to know the spiritual state of others. You can know their natural state. And Swedenborg says it's okay to say, if you are internally how you appear externally, then you seem to be like in hell. But you never know. You never know. So regeneration, no, it's not like, well, I've never really felt myself regenerating, so that means I probably am not. You probably are. Regeneration happens as it follows repentance. Repentance is doing any kind of taking a stand for religious or spiritual, or because it's not right reasons, against things you are tempted to do that you know you shouldn't. That's how repentance happens. And then regeneration is God's process of fixing up our spirit after we make those external actions. Good. John says, praying my circumstances changes so I can go in person to the experience. We'd love to have you there. Again, there is a fund that we're building up for people to go if they can't swing it financially. I don't know, it could be any circumstances you're talking about there. Or if any of you want to try to help someone else go to the conference, you can make a donation to our angel fund. Just go to offtheleft.com/donate and write that in the comments section, Angel Fund. Then the last one I'm going to do here is ST Stichels. I think you missed my question. I asked if Swedenborg ever mentioned if we can see and hear our loved ones on Earth after we die, or if we can visit, as in a visitation dream. This is a tough question because I know it happens. People definitely get visits from loved ones. I had a dream that was pretty real with my sister after she died. I know plenty of people who have had it. Swedenborg doesn't talk a ton about it, but he does. Well, he does talk about having dreams where he does see people, and that those people can be involved in those dreams. He talks about angels wanting to introduce good dreams into people, and them almost like in a friendly way competing with each other because they so want to give people good dreams. So yes, people, as far as them seeing what's going on with us on Earth, I'm not sure how aware they are directly of us. It may have gotten better since Swedenborg's time. He was saying there was a bit of a rift. It was harder for angels to know exactly what was going on. When some spirits found out that he could see into the physical world, they were saying, hey, tell my loved ones that I miss them. But then again, maybe they knew. So I don't know for sure. I would think so. I mean, there's so much modern experience of that happening that I think yes. Cool. All right, so I said that would be the last one. Hey, we got a few extra bonus minutes in here. Thanks, everybody. If I didn't answer your question, I'm sorry. Leave it in the chat. And if you're watching this in post, leave it in the chat. And like I said, come to the Off the Left Eye experience. That's going to be great. We got some good videos coming up for you. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a good day.